and welcome to today's episode of the Lemme Splain podcast. We are here today with Karen Coe from the WEST Mentorship Group, and we are going to talk about the importance of mentorship and especially the importance of mentorship for women in the technology sphere. So thank you so much for being with us today, Karen.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here.
So I wanted to talk a little bit because you are one of the head executives of WEST, and I was hoping that you could give me a little bit of a background in terms of how that came to be. Like it's not like little kids look around and go, I want to run a mentoring organization when I grow up. And I understand that that is like an evolution in career. So I was wondering if you give me like the elevator pitch of how that happened for you and what your evolution to this current position was.
Sure. Yes. So hello, everyone. My name is Karen Coe. Coe means tall in Chinese, actually, but if you ever meet me in person, you'll know that's not the case. I have about a 20-year work history, and I've always had this strong desire to help others and to make an impact in my community. So I'd started in the nonprofit world, I'd hopped over into education, moved into San Francisco because of love, and then ended at a education tech company helping high school students connect with colleges and scholarships. So I'd say that I was someone that, always saw myself as a Jill of trades, and I had a pretty hard time figuring out what my own path was supposed to be. And so 9 years down my work history, my dad passed away suddenly from cancer, and my world shattered. It just made me feel more determined that I really needed to make something of myself and to do something that would make him proud.
Right.
And I won't say that, I won't lie and say that this, the rest is history from this point forward. And I started a mentorship program and all of that. I will say that, my dad passing away really put life into a whole different perspective. And there were many nights where I would lie awake and just, try to think about what kind of impact I wanted to make with my life and what do I want to be remembered for. And I just remember thinking through it all, I wish that I had a mentor or a coach that I could have turned to for advice, to hear from their experience and to learn from their mistakes. But I honestly didn't know where to find one. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until one day the CFO of the company that I was working for, who also happened to be my boss, Rory Parnas, sat me down in our big conference room and asked me point blank, so what do you want to do with your career, whether it's at our company or outside of? And when I looked at him blankly and said, I have no idea. We then spent the next hour writing down all of the work that I had enjoyed before, brainstorming roles that could fit those descriptions. And I just remember getting emotional and tearing up at that meeting because it had been so long since anyone cared about my career development. And I ended up working so much harder for Rory because of his mentorship. So that's why I am so personally passionate about the work that I do now at WEST, because I get to connect women technologists who are facing career obstacles with amazingly supportive mentors from our community. And to date, I've connected about 150 women to mentors so far, and I'm just getting started.
That is awesome. So first off, that's an awesome story in terms of the lead-in that brought you to work with WEST and to work at WEST. And full disclosure, I am actually one of Karen's mentors. So I actually work with WEST, which is how we ended up having this conversation. So with that, and we honestly haven't even said what WEST stands for. So why don't we talk about what WEST stands for and what it is that you guys do?
Yes, absolutely. So WEST stands for Women Entering and Staying in Tech. And I think to understand how the WEST program evolved, I think it helps to learn a little bit about our founder, Heidi Williams. Mm-hmm. So Heidi started her tech career as a software engineer at Macromedia. She had always been driven by her character.
Media.
Yeah, Macromedia, a long time ago.
I miss home site, man. I'm sorry. Home site was my best coding environment. And I know that makes me dated, but it was. So tell Heidi I miss
Okay.
tell Heidi I miss home site. But go ahead.
Did you ever use Dreamweaver?
Sorry. Oh yeah, I totally.
Did you ever use?
No,
Yeah.
like Dreamweaver was your WYSIWYG, but if you wanted to just do straight code, like you could just work from home site. And I'm not even gonna lie, like I learned how to cut video so that I could put it into a Flash trailer. Like I've been around. I'm not even gonna pretend. I've been around for a while. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So Heidi started at Macromedia, and then as she grew from engineer to VP to manager to VP, it covered about the span of 20 years or so. And as she was growing, there was a landmark study that came out by Kapoor Capital that was talking about the concept of the leaky pipeline in tech, where Heidi learned that women were leaving tech at 2x the rate of white men, and people of color were leaving tech at 3x the rate of white men due to non-inclusive cultures, bias, lack of career support, et cetera, et cetera. And as someone who had a number of mentors and supported mentees in her own life, and also someone who doesn't just sit around and hope for a change to happen, Heidi gathered her friends and past colleagues who are now at various tech companies like LinkedIn, Intuit, SurveyMonkey, and such, and came up with the idea of creating a cross-company mentorship program for women in tech, both to help them navigate their careers and to broaden their network. So while the feedback was positive from this pilot and from the participants, the program itself was fairly large to do, across companies, and ended up being paused after the first year because it wasn't quite scalable. However, Heidi believed that there was real value in mentorship for mid-career women. And so she actually left her role at Box as the VP of platform engineering at the time and started WEST in 2016. So 7 years into the program, we've supported about 450 women from across the industry in one-on-one mentorships. And we've supported hundreds more through our community events and our annual summits. So, and I'm happy to dive more into what WEST does, but I just wanted to give you the origin story, the backstory for WEST as well.
No, I think that's awesome. And honestly, one of the things that I really liked about WEST when you and I started talking is, and this is no shade to my early career participants, because I was an early career tech participant, but it is harder to find mentorship the further you go up the ladder. And I loved the fact that WEST is looking at helping the mid-career women jump up to the higher tier, because that's where we start to go away. Like that's, I literally talked to a woman last week who is making her own stealth startup. And she's like, I don't care. It's my own money. I'm hiring women because I'm tired of it. And she's like, I'm just going to fill the company with women. I don't care. She's like, because there's too many of us leaving. So I'm just going to make an environment where we can all just actually do our job and be happy. I was like,
absolutely.
Right. But the fact that there is literally a C-level female executive who is herself that frustrated with the tech world and is like, I'm just going to go recruit all the really good women who are good at their job and are disgruntled at their environment. That is a sign that, that's the problem.
I mean, I see that as a problem, but also I applaud her for creating the change that she wants to see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great that she's creating the change, but the fact that she has to create that change is, okay. Like, I'm for it. I was like, you go, let me give you some names.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, I walked away going, well, it's good to know that, still haven't solved that problem.
Yeah. It's going to be a while, which is why I think, having the network and the support and the mentorship will go a long way, I think, in terms of helping folks get the foothold that they need. Just because, we're at a 20% of women are hang on, what was the statistics? So 1 in every 2 women leave tech by the age of 35 due to non-inclusive cultures. I think that 1/3 of those women leave within the first year of entering tech because of non-inclusive cultures. So I think when you're thinking about, all of the things that are coming up against women, with the gender wage gap, with potential sexism, harassment, discrimination, poor work-life balance, lack of advancement opportunities. I think that there's just so much up against women in order to advance in a similar way that someone else might be able to advance.
There is. And it's one of those things where, especially if you are, Sarah Colley and I started to talk about this. We were talking about the underground mafia of women in a way in tech. Or like, until you find the other women, it's really hard. And especially depending on what company you're at. And that's, I think, kind of what I liked about WEST, and what I found interesting in talking with mentees was, you guys, whether it's the one-on-one or it's the group stuff, you guys, first off, don't record the sessions, which makes for some really great candid moments, which I know I've had in speaking to mentees. And I like that it's not just like, I say this with all charity, but if I get suggested to me one more like in-person women in tech, how to negotiate and who's going to bring the cookies event, like I'm going to smack somebody. And I like, right? I mean, if somebody else says to me, let's do it, let's go to a women in tech networking, I'm like, the networking is not going to help you, because then you have to get out of there and go back to your job and deal with your environment.
Right.
And
I think
I like that you guys work on actual things. Like what was the one that you guys just did last week? That was how to break the ceiling to director of engineering. I saw that one come through and I was like, that's a good one.
Yeah. So a lot of our content is based around what the mentees are wanting to learn. And we are listening very deeply to our mentee community, both to help them overcome their current career challenges and also to aspire to the levels that they want to aspire to in the future. And I think the thing about mentorship also is that the match process is really important, because it's not a cookie cutter. When you're saying career planning, you know exactly what they mean. There's a lot more conversation that needs to happen when someone puts on their profile that I'm interested in career planning. You're like, great. So tell me a little bit more about career planning. What does that mean for you?
Right.
And for that individual, that could mean, they're interested in earning their first promotion, or they're at crossroads in their career right now and they're trying to decide if they want to stay as an individual contributor, or they want to move into management, or they've realized that they don't actually like being an engineer. They want to move into products. Or they're thinking about family planning and they want to work with a mentor who's done something like that before and done it successfully, where it didn't impact their career in a negative way. And so there's all sorts of things that just in the career planning category, that could mean for that individual. So I think, having larger conversations around, what does that actually mean for you? What does success look like to you after working with your mentor? And really having those deeper conversations so that they have a chance to think through what they're hoping for out of this mentorship relationship is really important.
Well, the nice thing about it is, if you try to do it with someone at work, honestly, whether it's a coworker or it's a boss, or even like if you attempt to do this with HR, which we all know is dodgy, you're not dealing with someone that's objective, because they're always either going to have what they want you to do, what's best for the company, or in some cases, let's be honest, they're in competition with you. So it's nice to talk to somebody that has no horse in your race and have an objective conversation about it, knowing that there's not going to be any blowback in your real world, so to speak. What you say in West stays in West, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I think that there is a lot more of a safe space when you don't have to worry about what you say to your mentor can eventually get back to your manager in some way, or you might end up working for this individual or working with this individual. And I
mhm.
think that being able to get mentorship from someone that's outside of your organization can also bring fresh ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of, or maybe, your company's not talking about, but could potentially be useful in what you're working on.
So I think what that also helps with is, because let's be honest, when you get to mid-level, unless you've made a real effort, your network is still tends to be either the people you know from that job or people you know from past jobs. And even then, or even
Hmm.
in your industry, it stays small. Like, and I
Hmm.
really saw that a lot when I worked in entertainment, that there were a lot of people that had extensive network outside of entertainment. And one of the things that I liked about West was that when the groups of mentees come together, it is a really great cross section. And
Yeah.
so you guys work with them on trying to build a network, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So when I started with the West program, this was back in 2020. This was right at around the start of the pandemic.
Mhm.
And we were all sitting at our homes on our own. I live in a studio, so I really was just in a capsule by myself. And it was really difficult to feel like you were in any kind of community, that you weren't just alone off on an island by yourself. And
Yeah.
so that was when we first started the cohorts, because that gave the opportunity for mentees that were working with their mentors also an additional benefit of meeting other women within the industry as well, so that you had that accountability with each other, that you're all learning and growing together and getting a chance to connect with other women was just a perk. And that expanded to our leadership talks, where we realized actually the other women within our community could also benefit from these opportunities of learning from our mentors, who were really brilliant and had such great insight on the various topics that they were passionate about, and getting to share that with our mentee community, where they can just opt in when there are conversations that they're interested in learning more about, and getting a chance to meet other women who are also interested in that conversation. And so these are lightweight opportunities where you get to connect with other women in the industry and network with them, so that you're not just siloed with the people that you work with at your company, but
Mhm.
there's, very organic opportunities to meet other women, to talk about, topics on how to work collaboratively across teams, how to think about, that career transition into directorship, and what does that look like? How do you think about career planning? And, sometimes you get that opportunity to talk about that in your day-to-day work. Maybe you have a manager who talks to you about career planning and you have a quarterly meeting. Maybe you're aware of career ladders, but maybe you're at a small startup and that doesn't exist for you yet. And
Yeah.
so it's really great for to have that opportunity to learn from others of uh, what normal might look like, I guess, or like what
Yeah.
those standards might look like when it comes to career advancement, so that you can have the resources and the tools to talk to your manager about it afterwards.
And or, let's be honest, you go make friends on LinkedIn and then you might be like, so I saw this thing at your company. What's it like actually working there?
Yeah.
Or I know, and that's something that I've had conversations with people with where, I saw somebody on LinkedIn that, or like one of those air quote LinkedIn experts who was like, you need to go connect with 100 people a month. And I'm like, that is worthless because you don't, right? You don't know them. And I can't tell you how many of those random offers I get and I'm like, decline. But
Yeah.
if it's somebody where you're like, hey, I was just in this with you and I noticed you worked here, or I noticed that you know someone who works there. Do you mind? Like, can you put me in touch with them so I can talk with them about their company? Like, it's one of those things that helps to organically grow your world in ripples in a way
Hmm.
that doesn't seem, for lack of a better word, smarmy. Like, how many
Yeah.
things do you get that just seem smarty?
It I generally don't connect with folks that I haven't
Right?
shared space in, I guess, in some capacity. So to me, if I was at let's say a Girl Geek Summit or our own West Summit, I'm very happy to connect with folks that also attended a similar event because we shared space together in some way. And so
Right.
there's some kind of shared connection. I think that when we're thinking about growing our network, it's also important to kind of look into our network every once in a while and reconnect with folks that maybe you haven't talked to since a couple years ago when you worked together, because a lot of times, as you're moving in your career, they're also moving, so there's a good chance that they're at a different company, or a different industry, or if they've advanced in their career in some way, and it's really great to reconnect with your community as well.
No, and I think that it's really great that West kind of emphasizes that importance of making sure that you participate, not just in West, but also in the community overall.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I really think that in terms of mentorship, you know, I think that one of the things mentorship brings to women is with that feeling of community is not being alone. Because a lot of
Hmm.
times, especially now, you're the only woman.
Yep.
Like, I'm the only female director in my group, and there's one other female PM, and she doesn't report to me. But it's one of those things where you kind of have to learn, especially as a woman, how to not only function within that primarily male sphere, but also how to find friends outside, and also how to work with what you have outside in your life and bring that into your work. Does
Hmm.
does that make sense? That's kind of what I found helps me.
Yeah.
Is, what is it from your outside life that you can bring in so that you're not just an automaton?
Yeah.
And I know that you and I had talked about that a little bit, where you had talked about how, you also have that emphasis on how can your outside life help to make your work life a little better, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'd call myself a connector or a conduit in ways.
Mhm.
Like, I always see connections from one thing to another, likely why very much enjoy mentorship and connecting individuals with mentors, because that's just how my brain works. But I do draw a lot of, learnings and experiences from the outside world to my work world. And, that could be from when I played Ultimate Frisbee for over a decade, being able to learn from that experience of what it's like to work with a team, what it's like to overcome failure. I think that women in sports, especially, we've had such a great chance to, be able to learn in a somewhat safe environment of how to fail, but to get back up and to play again. Because, if you're playing a team sport, for me, it was Ultimate Frisbee. Um, you're at a tournament, you've got 4 games that are stacked up for that day. When you're playing one of these games, you either win, lose, or tie. Most of the time you don't tie. Most of the time someone either wins or loses, right? So if you lose a game, then you can't wallow in that. You have to brush that off. If you drop a frisbee or something, you have to brush that off and continue playing at the caliber that you know that you're capable of.
Right.
And so I think that being able to draw from experiences like that, and, being a captain of a team, like recognizing not everyone's going to like you all the time. And that's just something that happens when you're someone in a position of leadership. Learning that early has been really helpful for me, I think, when it comes to moving into these types of positions where I am in a more leadership role and I'm supporting organizations.
Well, that's also something that, in terms of mentorship, at some point, a woman is probably going to sit you as another woman down and say, nobody's going to like you all the time, and you need to be okay with
Mhm.
that. Because we all
Yeah.
get told we have to be pleasing.
Yep.
And I've had that moment where I've had to, you know, watch a younger woman, and I've been the younger woman that's gotten sat down and told, as one C-suite executive once said to me at a studio, she's like, excuse my language here, she says, but I need to tell you a very important secret of being in charge. And I was like, okay. She goes, fuck him. She's like, you need to learn the value of the thought in your head. Just fuck them and be okay and smile. She's like, smile, because you got to be pleasing. But in your head, you're allowed to think, yeah, fuck it.
I love that. That's so good.
And oh, that woman was a treasure. And but yeah, she's just like, you know what? Fuck them. She's like, they're not. She's like, we get told all the time as women that we have, like, we're trained from birth that we have to make people like us. She's like, guys, don't worry about it. And I think that is part of the support that you need and the mentorship that you need as you go further up the chain. Because there's going to be more and more people that don't like you. And it's one of those things where, you know, somebody sat me down and taught me the value of making sure everything is documented. And at one point I may have, there's a, you know, apologies to every dude named Chad, but there's a Chad at every company. And like, I feel really bad for people named Chad, Karen, and Kevin now, because it's just like, got such an associator. Right? Like, I'm like, you might be a really nice person, but unfortunately your name has some associatives now. Right? But you know, when I say that, like, you just thought of that dude, didn't you? The guy who like tried to blame you for his crap.
Just the worst.
But that's just it. And that's the mentorship of, because nobody's going to teach it. No, your boss will never teach it unless your boss is thankfully a woman going, let me tell you how to deal with this. But we don't all get that boss. Like, I've had the female boss that hires you and then tries to torpedo you, and you're like, why did you hire me? But you know, at some point, another woman hopefully will sit you down and say, let me show you how to make the system work for you.
But I would say here also, like, this is why there's value in having a kind of a board of directors, in a sense, of mentors. In this circumstance, it would be really helpful for them to be mostly women, so that you can learn from how they have dealt with certain situations within their career as leaders. And hopefully there are different ways in which they've navigated that you can then learn from, so that it's not just this way is the only way, but being able to learn that these are all of the various ways that you can think about how to move forward in these situations.
There are times where I have talked to them and been like, all right, this is how you write the email so that you document the situation without looking like you're documenting the situation. And then there are times, right? And then there are times where I have literally sat someone down and gone, you need to find a new job. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like you do the job really well, but it's time to go find a new job, because this is not your spot. And it can go either way. Like, sometimes mentorship is, let's sit with you and let's strategize about how to help you go up the ladder, because you're at a legit company. You just need to know how to go through the steps. But sometimes someone will sit with you and you're like, girl, time to go. And it's you need someone that's willing to have that conversation with you for your own good. And I've been the person that's had that someone has had that conversation with, where they're like, you should leave before someone gets at you. Like, just head out. Yeah. So it's one of those, like, and I love the fact that you guys are in kind of an objective sphere that allows for those very real conversations, because once again, the fact that you're not company attached means that you can have that objectivity. Correct? And everything that goes on between your mentors and mentees in the one-on-one, like, you have no idea. Like, unless someone complains and it's wildly crazy, that's
Yeah.
their time, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so we're not part of a larger company. We're women owned, um, started by a woman engineer. Um, and we're really just focused on, that network effects of being able to bring together women, non-binary. We have, well, for our mentors, it's across the board.
Mhm.
Everyone who is interested in becoming a mentor, um, we have a conversation, and they share about, the types of things that they're interested in mentoring on, why they're interested in mentoring, and then they join our mentoring community. But even then, our program is very mentee focused, and
Right.
so they take priority when it comes to that match. And so we're really focused on helping our mentees get matched with the best possible mentor, depending on their development goals that they're wanting to work on and the type of individual that they're hoping to work with. So for some folks, like, they're in an IC role, they're a senior engineer, software engineer, and they're looking at, what does it look like to become an architect? What
Yep.
does it look like to become, to continue moving down that IC track, and really want to talk to a woman mentor about this, because there are no more, they might be the most senior woman at their company and they don't have any other
I know it.
role
Yeah.
models to look up to for that. So we can get really down to the nitty gritty sometimes of being able to find the types of mentors that they're wanting to work with.
Yeah. And I love that. So
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to get involved in West,
Yeah.
how would they do that? What do you guys have coming up? If somebody wanted to come check you guys out and get a feel for what you do, like, where would you start? Where would you go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have bi-monthly leadership talks that we host that are free for our community. So all you have to do there is to sign up on joinwest.org, and then you'll receive the invites for our upcoming leadership talks. So that one is super lightweight. It's kind of like a lunch and learn situation. Um, Kathleen, you've done one of these for us. Share with the audience what that was like for you.
So it was actually really fun for me. I
Yeah.
think I did two for you guys. I think we did executive
That's
presence,
true. Yeah.
and then we did the ongoing tracking one
Yeah.
for how to, like, and this is just it. Like, it can be anything from helping people with their overall executive presence, after which I ended up working with one girl off to the side and helping her. Like, it was like, how do you prep for your interview? And she got the job.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then there was another one that I did where I took the system that I use, honestly, to kind of track my work throughout the year, and kind of shared
Yeah.
that with whatever mentees wanted to show up. And
Yeah.
was a thing for, how do you set yourself up throughout the year so that when the time for your annual review comes around, you've tracked throughout the year what you've done, and it's in
Yep.
one document. And also, how do you take, because we all got those lofty goals, you know what I mean? How do you
Mhm.
take those goals and break them down into binary indicators of whether or not you've met those goals? Because that then helps you to be able to, to advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
So both ones, I liked being able to focus on, have them come away with actionable steps,
Mhm.
which is super important for me when I talk to people. Because once again, women in tech, we get a lot of pie in the sky stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and it's great. Like, it's great to have the high level, this is where I'm going to go from. But like I said, then you have to go and be in your work environment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, whenever I talk to them, or I try to focus on something where I'm like, and this is the document you can take and work with to go fix your world afterwards. But to be fair, I am a solver.
I mean,
I know that's who I am. I'm a solver.
so we love solvers. We're all about the solvers. And I think, with the tech industry in particular, they're so data driven too, that it's really helpful to have these artifacts of being able to say, these are all the things that I was working towards that we've agreed on, and here's the progress that I've made on this. And to be able to have that to back yourself up when it comes time to have these conversations. So I so appreciate having leaders like you to be able to come on and share about the things that, you know, have been really helpful for you and your career. And so these are the types of conversations that you can expect when we're talking about our leadership talks.
Yep.
And then we also have our 6-month mentorship program, which is really geared towards folks that have specific development goals that they're wanting to work on.
Yeah.
And so that could be something like what I was talking about earlier for career planning. It could be around communication. I think asynchronous communication was something that folks were really struggling with a year or two ago as they were joining new companies. Everyone was async. Really trying to figure out how to collaborate and communicate effectively was something that was top of mind. Managing up, I think, is one that is very awkward when you're talking about it in an internal mentorship program, but
Yeah,
because it's external, you get to learn from someone else of, you know, some of the techniques that could potentially work as you're thinking about how to work with your manager collaboratively towards your career success.
Yeah.
So that's what our 6-month mentorship. We match you with a mentor one-on-one. You work with them for 6 months. And then in our career accelerator, there's also 6 career development workshops that we've developed over the course of the last several years that are topics that are evergreen, that people are wanting to learn more about and discuss with other folks across the industry. So these topics include things like career planning, you know, like thinking about what your motivators are and what type of work brings you joy and brings you energy. We talk about personal brands because we know personal brand's important, but you know, a lot of people don't like thinking about they think of personal brand as having to talk about themselves on social media and then that's it. But there's so much more to personal brand. And so we do a workshop on that. We talk about sponsorship. We talk about non-promotable work. It's all topics that are really important for women to know as they're growing in their careers, so that they don't get bogged down. And you know, when it comes to promotion time, learn that, oh, well, you've been doing all of this work, yes, but this is none of the work that I actually measure you on in terms of, you know, if you've been successful in your roles, so I can't give you that promotion. I would hate for anyone to hear that from their manager. And so these are conversations that we hope to have with you ahead of time so that you are coming in aware of, you know, how to continue moving forward in the way that you want for career success, and defining that on your own terms.
No,
So that was
all amazing programs that let's be honest, we all needed at some point in our career.
Yeah, and I wish that I had that earlier in my career for sure. So I think that, you know, for our mentors, they typically fall into 2 buckets, right? So we've got folks that have never really benefited from mentorship and wish that they had it. And so they're giving back because they didn't have mentorship in their life. And then we've got the folks who benefited from mentorship and, you know, really were able to grow their careers because of that. And now they're giving back because they want to, you know, pass it forward.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely.
And then didn't you mention to me that WEST is doing something in January as well for anybody that wants to sign up and get involved? I mean, I know we're probably putting this up in October, but you know, the project manager and me would like to encourage others to plan ahead.
Absolutely. So January, thank you for that, Kathleen. So January is National Mentoring Month, and we host our annual summit in January. You know, for some, it might be the most bonkers month to try to host a summit because everyone's coming back from the holidays. Nobody's really thinking about career advancement or, you know, in that mindset because they're like, oh no, I have so much work I have to do now. However, I will say that mentorship benefits everyone, and getting access to that early in the year, and especially getting a chance to, hear from inspiring leaders who have been where you've been and have been able to succeed, and being able to learn some of the tools and tactics that they had employed for them, and to be strategic about how you're approaching your year, I think can really help you with your ability to achieve and to maximize your time. That was a lot of jargon just now, but I think, what we really love actually about the summit is just that it's fun, it's integrated. I think that sometimes with virtual conferences, it could feel like you're just a fly on the wall because you only exist in the chat channels. And, at the end of each of the talks, someone will eventually say, hey, connect with me on LinkedIn. And then you see like 20 different LinkedIn URLs come through on the chat. Like, that's when you see that, oh, there were other people that were on this talk with you. I'd say that for our summit, we're really focused on interaction with our attendees, with our speakers, because that is something that we see over and over when folks are filling in their forms for the registration, that they're interested in meeting other women. And so we make it a really intentional point to facilitate those opportunities for connection. And our summits are more like workshops in a way, like 3-day workshops, really,
Right.
where folks get a chance to think about, creating different strategies for themselves, and have that time for self-reflection, get a chance to meet other engineers, product designers, analysts, who are also at the summit with them, and come away from that opportunity feeling like, hey, I just learned something new that I think I can, start trying in my job today. And I met these new folks who seemed really cool, and I'm going to grab, a virtual coffee with them next week. And I'm really excited, and I'm happy, and I'm energized. And so that's what we're trying to really create from this opportunity and celebration of mentorship in January.
Like, I have no problem, and like I said, fair warning, yes, because I am a project and product person, so I'm used to planning a few months ahead. But like, I also recognize that I usually need to jerry rig my life. So I will purposely sign up for something for January in November.
Yes.
And be like, I'm just gonna like set this up now so that I don't come off the holidays and have shell shock and be like, oh, I already made a commitment, I should show up for my commitment.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'm the person where if I know there's a penalty, like a $20 penalty, if I don't show up for that yoga class, I will get up for the 5:30 yoga class.
Oh,
I am like a
5:30.
I am a toddler. I need a penalty so that I get there.
You know what? I think that's more of knowing yourself, and you're helping your future self succeed.
Exactly.
So
I'm like, I'm
I
just
love
gonna
that.
jerry rig this so that I have no other option. But yeah, I totally cop to the fact that I do that to myself all the time.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm fully supportive of it. I think whatever works for you. 5:30 cuts into my sleeping time, so I personally have a harder time doing something like that.
Okay,
But
so to be fair, since I left the US, it's really hard to find a 5:30 morning class. Like, most of the gyms here don't open till 6:30. So
yeah.
the Europeans have forced me to sleep later, for the record.
Hey.
Yes. But yeah, I used to be the 5:30 a.m. person because I was like, I just want to get it over with. But they don't roll like that out here. So yeah.
Wow.
On that
I'm
note,
trying to think about that. Yeah,
now that I'm scared you with my sleep schedule. So I mean, this sounds like a great opportunity. If anyone is interested, we will make sure that we have all of the links at the bottom, including the link for January, in case anybody wants to try out my technique of just jerry rigging your life.
Yeah.
but in a good way. And yeah, I mean, we're kind of running out of time for today, but just, is there anything else that you would want, and, any final thoughts that you'd want to share with anybody, Karen, in terms of WEST as an organization?
Yes. So I actually wanted to share quickly about the topic for the summit.
Oh,
And yeah, I realized that I
show
was
up,
talking
man,
so
but
much
it's
about
probably
how
good to
fun
know
it
what
was.
we're talking about. Yeah, I'm gonna crash the party. Yeah.
So, yeah. So we took a poll for the West community back over the summer to ask folks what they're struggling with in their careers right now and what kind of career goals they're working towards. And what we heard from that was, yes, people were still interested in learning more about career planning. That's an evergreen for us. But also, they're interested in well-being, work-life balance, family planning, financial independence. And so we took all of that, like, all right, so what does that mean for our community? How do we best support them? And we came up with focusing on career resilience for the January summit. And what that looks like for us is really breaking it down so that folks have the foundation to, be able to future proof their career regardless of what's happening in the current climate. We've all seen all of the layoffs. We've seen company reorgs. Like, things are a bit chaotic right now. So how do you emerge as a leader despite all the things that are happening around you? So that's our focus for our January summit.
Awesome.
And then I want to mention that, if you're thinking about the Kathleen method of enticing yourself ahead of time, there are a lot of folks that maybe have access to professional development stipends from this year that they haven't used yet. So this might be a good opportunity where you're giving a present to your future self in 2024, where you get the ticket for our early bird price, which is $250 instead of the regular price, which is $350.
Right.
You get it now, and you have the opportunity to join the summit in January, but be able to take advantage of your 2023 budget so
Yeah.
that it doesn't go to waste. So that's one option. The other option is, if you find that, hey, I actually could really benefit from working with a mentor next year and get that kind of career support that I haven't been able to find anywhere else, you also get a free summit ticket in combination of registering for our Career Accelerator program, which gets you that one-on-one mentorship plus the career workshops that we talked about earlier. So I just wanted to throw that out there just in case there are any folks that were looking for opportunities to round out their professional development budget, or are looking for mentorship, and we're here. So
Yep, and
that's
we
it.
will put the links for everything there. And hey, now I know what the January summit is actually about, because otherwise well, you know me, I'll just show up and roll with whatever we got for that day. I'll be like, okay,
Oh,
we're
I
doing
love
career
it.
resilience today. Let's roll with that. But
We are gonna roll
that's,
with it.
I know, right? So that is amazing. And so we will get all of those links and all that information from Karen, and we'll put it in the show notes. And Karen, thank you very much for coming to chat with us today. And we really enjoyed our time with you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's been so much fun.
Looking forward to talking to you soon. Bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.